Ever since the incident happened, Han Xianyu's psychological health had been deteriorating and Fei Yang couldn't stop worrying about him. After all, this incident not only affected his career and life, but it also had an impact on his mental state. Han Xianyu helped those kids out of kindness, yet he was slandered and framed. He didn't commit any crimes, yet he had lived with that infamy for the rest of his life. This was all while that greedy couple kept gnawing at his flesh and winning the sympathy of all of society. In the future, they would, without a doubt, rely on that exorbitant compensation to live lavishly. If it wasn't for the young man who appeared today, the company would force Xianyu to settle this matter privately. If that really happened, he couldn't predict whether Xianyu would still be able to hang on or not. Seeing that Han Xianyu was silent, Fei Yang comforted him. Don't be so down. Didn't Chairman Chu agree to give that kid a try? Maybe there will really be a turn of events. If that Yi Bai didn't have a solution, I doubt he'd dare to speak so boldly during the meeting. Fei Yang didn't dare to imagine what would happen if Yi Bai failed. Or, what if that person has some ill intentions? Upon hearing the name, Yi Bai, Han Xianyu's pupils finally moved a little and a warm smile emerged in his dim eyes. After a moment of silence, he closed his eyes slowly and shut off the limitless vortex in his eyes. 2 days later, Mr. and Mrs. Zhao gathered all the various publications and the Crusade Congress convened as scheduled. They even had a live telecast. They already sued him, yet they're still having a press conference before the court session. I assent this the same as establishing a private court session? Lest Han Xianyu's mood be affected, Fei Yang cut the television and internet cable and even confiscated Han Xianyu's cell. Just as he was thinking there weren't any loopholes, Han Xianyu's personal phone suddenly rang. The caller ID indicated, Yi Bai. Seeing this name, Fei Yang hurriedly answered the call and said cautiously, "Hello, Mr. Yi? Turn on the live telecast." The caller didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the point. Fei Yang was somewhat taken aback by that request. Right now? Yi Bai, yes. Fei Yang hesitated for a second before replying, all right, got it. Fei Yang quickly turned on the live telecast on his computer and knocked on Han Xianyu's bedroom door. Xianyu. Xianyu, are you awake? After he pushed the door open and entered, there was an overpowering stench of alcohol as usual. Han Xianyu was lying on the floor and next to him was an overturned bottle of wine. He didn't even respond when Fei Yang called him. Seeing him in this state, Fei Yang was both angry and heartbroken, but he knew that if he didn't allow Han Xianyu to vent his anger, he might really go crazy, so Fei Yang didn't stop him. Get up quick, Mr. Yi just called, he wants us to watch the press conference. At the same time in Imperial City's Grand Hotel, the hotel's biggest multifunctional conference hall was packed with hundreds of reporters from various media outlets, and the girl's father, Zhao Deyong, and her mother, Li Qiaohong, were both seated on stage. Zhao Deyong had a slightly plump figure, very short hair, and was wearing an old black suit which didn't fit him very well. He said in a grave tone, "We would like to express our gratitude to the media for lending a hand to our family. Han Xianyu's a superstar, he's rich and powerful, so it's not easy for ordinary people like us to get justice. Thankfully, there are still many kind souls around to provide me and my wife with an outlet to speak up, otherwise, we wouldn't know what to do." Li Qiaohong, who was seated next to him, had slightly greasy hair and wore an old gray dress. She looked very distressed and kept lowering her head to wipe her tears. I really didn't expect that Han Xianyu was that kind of person. I actually personally delivered my daughter into the hands of that bastard. Both of them were just ordinary people at the lowest rung of society. They lived poorly, led tough lives, yet this happened to them. When they first appeared in the media, many expressed sympathy for what they went through, and naturally, many more people cursed Han Xianyu. In the apartment, Fei Yang watched as the couple shamelessly pretended to be pitiful. He was on the verge of exploding in anger. He couldn't imagine how Han Xianyu felt from watching this scene. "Xianyu, are you all right?" Fei Yang asked worriedly. Han Xianyu stared at the couple on the screen in silence, then a flicker of recognition came over him as his expression changed. It's him. Who? Fei Yang didn't understand and he looked towards Han Xianyu's line of sight. Then he saw a familiar figure in the press conference. The man seated next to the reporter from Mars Weekly looked like Yi Bai. He's there too. What is this Yi Bai planning to do? Under such circumstances with such a strong public opinion, it was near impossible to turn the situation around. If he wanted to prove Han Xianyu's innocence at such an occasion, it would only worsen Han Xianyu's case. Fei Yang furrowed his brows and felt completely uneasy. On the live telecast, the first person to speak was the lanky reporter from Southeast Daily whom Han Xianyu had beaten up, Yan Zhenyang. The majority of breaking news from this incident was reported by the Southeast Daily. Also, they were responsible for initiating and organizing this press conference. Riding on the popularity of this story, Southeast Daily received instant fame and fortune in the industry and was lauded for practicing media ethics. Before the reporters could ask any questions, Yan Zhenyang gave an overview of the sequence of events using a slideshow. I believe most of you have seen this photo of Han Xianyu in the bedroom with many little girls and have seen him even lying in bed with them. And it was because of this photo that I got beaten up by Han Xianyu when I went up to him for an interview. When a celebrity acts like that, I have reasons to suspect that aside from psychological issues, he must have a violent nature as well. Exactly. How could he just beat a person up? Must have hit him at his weak spot, huh? It's hard to imagine what kind of treatment the children get at his place. Yan Zhenyang's words had the support of those watching the live telecast, especially the media. They abhorred acts of violence against reporters. Yan Zhengyang continued, after this incident has gone public, the dirty deeds behind Han Xianyu's charitable acts slowly surfaced, ranging from the recorded allegations from the victim herself to the nude photos and the story leaked by the ex-employee who worked at his villa, not to mention his ex-girlfriend who revealed his secret addiction. With all this evidence, Han Xianyu's fans are still making a futile attempt to wash his name clean. Still trying in vain to find a loophole in the law. It's sickening. Yan Zhenyang ended his righteous speech, took the microphone and pointed it towards the girl's father and said, Mr. Zhao, Mrs. Zhao, I understand how the both of you are feeling right now and I really don't want you to recall those painful memories, but in order to let the criminal get the punishment he deserves and for justice to be served, I hope you can give us a detailed account of the incident and let the truth be known to the public. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Alright. Zhao Deyong took a deep breath and began to talk about the chronological sequence of events. He mentioned how he noticed that his daughter was acting strange when he arrived home one day and how he found out his daughter had been sexually assaulted by Han Xianyu for a long time after having a heart-to-heart talk with her. After speaking, Zhao Deyong played the recording of the conversation he had with his daughter. He touched me. Where did he touch? He touched my chest. Anne. Li Qiaohong started pounding her chest and crying out loudly halfway through the recording. My daughter, my poor girl, my only baby daughter, how is she going to continue living? Her whole life is destroyed by the hands of that bastard. Zhao Deyong clenched his fists. It's my fault. As her father, I didn't perform my duty as a father. I'm so useless. I can't even protect her and even made her go through such a horrible thing. That man is the scum of society, he won't even let a child off, he's an inhumane bastard. It's not enough to even sentence him to death. The raging expression of the father, the sorrowful cries from the mother and the unbearable recording instantly propelled the angry emotions in the room to the max. The comments from the people watching the live telecast also flooded through, is Han Xianyu even human? He won't even let a child off. I already knew the entertainment industry is messy but I didn't expect it to be this messy. Han Xianyu's 10,000 times more nauseating than people who secretly live off a rich man or cheaters who sleep around. He's more than just nauseating, those people are probably just immoral, but he's inhumane. He hadn't even offered an apology to date. He's too cold-blooded. Pervert. Scum. I can't believe I actually idolized a person like him before. He should be castrated. His entire family should die. Curse his daughter, I hope she'll be XX by someone as well next time. Fei Yang read those malicious comments and his expression turned ugly. Xian Yu, why don't we turn it off? Fei Yang's voice trailed off while he paid attention to something at the corner of the screen. He saw a man in a white collared top supporting his head with his hand and looking at the enraged crowd before him with an indifferent expression. He didn't seem to have any intention of doing anything. Just when he was worried that Xian Yu couldn't take it any longer and was about to turn the live telecast off, the teenager suddenly turned his head and said something to the reporter from Mars Weekly. The reporter listened attentively with his body tilted and then, his eyes glistened as he nodded. After that, the Mars Weekly reporter, Gao Feng, suddenly stood up and exclaimed, "We have the testimony from the witness and irrefutable proof presented, yet Han Xianyu still refuses to plead guilty. He's insane. It's because of people like him that the entertainment industry is so messy." Mars Weekly was known to be swift in getting news out, they published many explosive tabloids and was very famous in the industry. But in recent years, they were getting from bad to worse, they even copied the news that other publications had published regarding Han Xianyu's case. On stage, Yan Zhenyang saw Gao Feng stand up to speak and a hint of disdain flashed in his eyes. What #1 correspondent in China? He's just a paparazzi who's past his prime. It's my home ground turf, yet he's still trying to steal the limelight. Gao Feng first roared indignantly, then turned to Zhao Deyong on stage and spoke with humility, "Mr. Zhao, I'm Gao Feng from Mars Weekly. I'm very sorry for what you've been through. May I ask you a few questions? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon." Seeing that Gao Feng was condemning Han Xianyu just like the other reporters, a hint of contentment flashed in Zhao Deyong's eyes as he spoke in deep pain, "Mr. Reporter, please go ahead." Gao Feng nodded, "Thank you. Before I pose my question, I would like Mr. Zhao and all the reporters seated here today to watch a clip." After speaking, Gao Feng walked to the projector by the side and got the staff to insert the thumb drive he had with him. When Zhao Deyong and the audience heard that, they instinctively turned towards the enormous screen in the multifunction hall. An upbeat song started playing first, then a little girl around the age of 5 appeared on the screen. The little girl was dressed in a black leather crop top and miniskirt. She was imitating the dance moves of a very popular superstar from Country H. The dance moves were very mature, but the little Lolita gave a completely different feel to them. It was mo and cute. Her moves were exactly in sync with the superstar. After the clip played, Gao Feng turned to Zhao Deyong and asked, "Mr. Zhao, after watching this clip, what do you think about it?" Zhao Deyong wasn't sure why Gao Feng suddenly showed them this clip of the little girl dancing, so he replied truthfully, "Very cute." "What about the reporters? What do all of you think?" Gao Feng looked towards the reporters and asked again. The reporters who watched the clip found it unbearably mo and talked about it amongst themselves. "Oh God, that's too mo and cute. She replicates those dance moves so well. Dancing like that at such a young age, she's very talented. I've seen this clip before. The clip of this little girl dancing went viral a few years back. She's amazing. This girl should be around 10 years old by now." The audience watching the live telecast also expressed that they were mesmerized by the cuteness of the little Lolita in the clip. While everyone talked about the video, they also looked at Gao Feng suspiciously, unsure of his intention behind playing that clip during the press conference. After knowing what the audience thought about the video, he nodded and pressed a button on the projector. "Alright, then can I get everyone to look at these screenshots?" In the next second, a few screenshots from Weibo appeared on the screen. The date on the screenshots indicated they were from 7 years ago. A very popular blogger reposted the clip of this little girl dancing, and the blogger's reaction was just like that of the reporters. All the comments below the post talked about how cute the little girl was. However, when they reached the final slide of the screenshots, a nasty comment appeared, "So flirty, I really want to fuck her. How much for a night?" When this comment was presented on the big screen, there was a second of dead silence in the audience and then a major uproar exploded. Damn! Who's this person? A pervert? How could he say something like that about a 5-year-old child? Even if it's online, he shouldn't speak so recklessly, right? That's too gross. This pervert is probably a pedophile too, right? In the screenshots, Gao Feng censored all the Weibo IDs that appeared on the screenshots, this ID included. Everyone scolded the person up to this point and gradually, some people started to speculate about the identity of the pervert. Damn! The perverted netizen in this screenshot isn't Han Xianyu, is it? It must be him. This dummy account was dug out by Mars Weekly, right? I just said that Mars Weekly doesn't seem to be doing well these last few years, but it seems they still have some potential. This is the first time someone dug out Han Xianyu's dummy account. When the reporters saw this new information they could work with, they started getting excited. At the same time, in the apartment, Fei Yang, who was monitoring the live telecast, was waiting for a turn of events, but instead, what he saw was the situation becoming dramatically worse. He was on the verge of going crazy. What dog shit dummy account? Are these reporters nuts? What's going on? Isn't this reporter from Mars Weekly the person Yi Bai had an arrangement with? Han Xianyu leaned against the bedside and stared at the screen. He still had that haggard and stoned expression, and on his face, there was numbness and emptiness. At that moment, the live telecast website was also flooded with comments, "Wow. This is explosive. Han Xianyu's dummy account is exposed. He must have other accounts aside from this. He's really disgusting. That little girl in the clip should be around 5 to 6 years old, almost the same age as the sick girl he sexually assaulted, huh? The more you think about it, the scarier it gets." After getting the reaction he wanted, Gao Feng said in a grave tone, "Everyone has seen that when a normal person watches the video, they would find that the little girl is really adorable. Only a pedophile would have such dirty and malicious thoughts." Zhao Deyong saw this reporter bringing out another piece of evidence and his eyes lit up. He immediately chimed in, "That's right. Also, the date on Weibo indicated this was 7 years ago. Han Xianyu has been in hiding for so long that we don't even know how many innocent children he's harmed." In the press conference, the man in a white-collared top skimmed through the comments on his phone and listened to the words of the media and Zhao Deyong. His lips subtly curled upwards. The prey has entered the trap. On stage, Gao Feng looked towards the audience unmovingly and his gaze swept across the entire hall, stopping at Zhao Deyong, who had a look of surprise. He raised his brows slightly and asked, "Mr. Zhao, you think so too? You think this netizen is a pedophile?" Zhao Deyong didn't hesitate and replied, "Of course, if he's not a pedophile, what is he?" Others started murmuring amongst themselves as well. "Do you still need to ask? If he isn't considered a pedophile, then what is a pedophile? Han Xianyu's name has been blackened forever, he won't be able to wash it clean forever, yeah?" Gao Feng laughed and didn't respond, but he pressed a button on the projector. "Then, everybody please take a look at who wrote this disgusting comment." Upon hearing what Gao Feng said, everybody held their breath and bolted upright in their seats. There must be many juicy contents made by Han Xianyu's dummy account, huh? On the big screen, the image was cropped and it was still the same screenshot, but this time, the mosaic sensor on the Weibo ID was gone and the netizen's ID appeared before everyone's eyes as clear as day. "Lonely cigarette, so flirty, I really want to fuck her. How much for a night?" And Lonely Cigarette was actually the father of the victim who was sexually assaulted, Zhao Deyong. After all the reporters saw that extremely familiar ID, the entire hall fell into a terrible, dead silence. The hideous smile Zhao Deyong had initially suddenly stiffened. There were disbelief and rage on his face at first, and then, he seemed to remember something as a look of panic and fear swept across his face. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. After a very long silence, there was an upheaval in the hall. Wah, damn. How could it be? This isn't Han Xianyu's Weibo account but Zhao Deyong's. Is it real? Is this picture photoshopped? How could Mr. Zhao say something like that? This is impossible. It must be fake. The calm and unperturbed Yan Zhenyang's face abruptly changed at this point. He quickly stood up and yelled in fury, Gao Feng. Are you insane? You once held the title of being the #1 correspondent in China, yet you're neglecting your professional ethics and coming up with this fake news just because you can't get anything juicy? You're making a pig of yourself. Gao Feng looked coldly at Yan Zhenyang. Reporter Yan, we're in the same profession. Don't you find what you just said really hilarious? What's the occasion today? There are so many reporter friends seated here today. Why would I lie about something that can be easily exposed? TSK, since this Weibo post was from 7 years ago, even Zhao Deyong himself probably forgot he said something so degrading, so he didn't destroy the evidence, huh? I've already shared the original Weibo post. Everyone can now see it for themselves. It's the third comment on page 7. Listening to what Yan Zhenyang said, the audience broke into discussion again. This news is coming from Mars Weekly. Although Mars Weekly isn't doing very well now, they never leaked any false information before. That's why they offended so many celebrities and almost collapsed from all the attacks. Even a small publication would never dare to use a fake picture to mislead everyone in front of so many reporters. Damn! I found it. It's true, it was really posted by Zhao Deyong. Hurry, go take a look. All the reporters present, including those watching the live telecast, quickly opened the Weibo post that Gao Feng shared a few seconds ago and really saw Zhao Deyong's comment on page 7. At the same time, Gao Feng connected the projector to his phone using Bluetooth and displayed Zhao Deyong's comment on the big screen and how he argued with other netizens. So flirty, I really want to fuck her. How much a night? To the netizen above, you're a pervert, huh? How could you say such a thing? Hee, what did I do? This little shit is dressed like that and dancing so erotically, don't you think she's trying to get people to fuck her? Go fuck your father, bastard. I want to fuck your display picture. Is she your daughter? She looks like she would like to be fucked. I'll fuck your mother. Damn it. Where do you live, bastard? Post your address here if you have the guts. IXXXX. Gao Feng casually looked at the awfully pale Zhao Deyong on stage. What do you think? Mr. Zhao, have you managed to recall all these comments you made? Zhao Deyong held his phone with trembling fingers, cold sweat trickling down his forehead. He anxiously tapped on his phone. Gao Feng sneered, you're trying to delete your Weibo now. I'm afraid it's too late. Zhao Deyong stopped what he was doing and knew it was probably useless. There was fear on his face, but then, he held his composure and stood up to speak. This happened so many years ago. I didn't mean what I said back then. It can't prove anything. Gao Feng seemed to have anticipated his reply, so he said, Mr. Zhao, that wasn't what you said just now, was it? Everyone here heard you admit that a person who could say something like that must be a pedophile. Now you're saying it can't prove anything. Aren't you slapping your own mouth? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. After speaking, Gao Feng discreetly took a glimpse at a certain corner of the room and continued to put up 5 to 6 photos. All of them were different comments posted by Zhao Deyong using different usernames, and they were all unbearable to read. There were some from 3 to 5 years ago, a couple from 1 year ago, and one which was very recent. The most recent one was him requesting to have sex with a young girl on a certain website. This account was verified and was, without a doubt, Zhao Deyong's. Each time a new photo flashed onto the big screen, Zhao Deyong's expression turned a shade paler. At the last photo, he was frozen stiff in his chair. How could it be? How exactly did this person manage to do this? He actually dug out all those posts from so many years back, even those I don't have any recollection of. He wasn't a perverted pedophile at heart. Those comments and the request he made to that young girl were just his way of thrill-seeking, but after these messages were exposed, there was nothing he could say to clear his name. As expected, after looking at all this evidence, all the reporters at the scene were completely dumbfounded and the audience at the live telecast exploded into chatter. Oh my God. What did I just see? Zhao Dayong's a pedophile too. And look at all this stuff he said online, it's disgusting. How was he even able to criticize Han Xianyu with so much self-righteousness? This is simply unbelievable. At this moment, Yan Zhenyang was at a complete loss. He never expected that Zhao Dayong would have evidence that could be used against him. No way. I can't let things go on this way. Even if Zhao Dayong's a pedophile, Han Xianyu's charges are still undeniable. I have to draw the public's attention back to the real issue at hand. Yan Zhenyang immediately stood up, took the microphone and was about to speak, everyone. However, just at that moment, Gao Feng immediately interrupted Yan Zhenyang and exclaimed in anger, just as everyone has seen, it's true, Zhao Dayong's a pedophile through and through. He's the scum of the society, as he said himself. An inhumane bastard, a pervert that should be shot in the head. Yan Zhenyang, let's not talk about whether Zhao Dayong's a pedophile first. Han Xianyu, he. Gao Feng's rage seemed to have reached its limit. He slammed the table and interrupted Yan Zhenyang once again. With a frightening glare, he said, also, according to what I investigated, there's more to this than meets the eye. Zhao Dayong. This inhumane bastard. He's not only a perverted pedophile. He won't even let his own daughter off. Following Gao Feng's fuming howl that reverberated across the entire hall, the stunned audience sat there in utter disbelief. Even Yan Zhenyang had forgotten what he wanted to say and was flabbergasted. What? Zhao Dayong didn't even let his own daughter off. Oh my God. On the live telecast website, after the pause, there was a crazy barrage of comments that covered the entire screen. Nobody cared about what Yan Zhenyang had to say. Everyone's attention was now on the shocking truth Gao Feng disclosed. After the initially calm and composed Zhao Dayong heard that, he was stupefied and suddenly started yelling as he stood up, "You damn mother venomous slanderer. I would fuck your father. Are you crazy? That's my own daughter. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon." Yan Zhenyang, who was interrupted countless times, was made totally speechless by the explosive news Gao Feng revealed. After a few seconds, he quickly regained his senses and shouted in Gao Feng's direction, "Great reporter Gao, we must show the evidence for whatever we say. With just your words, you're putting such a big accusation on someone, you have total disregard for his life. You're not a reporter but an executioner." Zhao Dayong also remembered this was a press conference. He calmed himself down and said, "This reporter here, do you have any evidence? How could you slander someone like that?" Gao Feng seemed prepared for their questions and he mumbled, "TSK, you want evidence? Zhao Dayong. I guess you won't cry until you see the grave." After Gao Feng had spoken, a photo appeared on the huge screen. In the photo, there was a little girl and at her young age, her figure could barely be seen. She only had some panties and a little tank top on, looking like she just came out of the shower. She seemed very nervous in front of the camera. The person in the photo was Mr. and Mrs. Zhao's daughter. And that photo was circulated by Zhao Dayong himself to his circle of friends. He even added a caption along with it, "What do you think about my daughter?" and included a smirk emoticon. When this photo appeared, all the reporters at the scene felt so bad for the child. Oh gosh. He's really a monster. He didn't even let his own daughter off. How could he do that? Girls at that age already have extreme self-consciousness, okay? As her father, he actually circulated such a revealing photo of his own daughter to his friends. Utterly disgusting. How can a person like him be fit to be a father? When Zhao Deyong saw that everyone presumed this photo to be the evidence that he sexually abused his own daughter, his face turned red in anger and immediately burst out, "This was just a normal day with my daughter." Gao Feng sneered, "Tisk, you're calling this revealing photo normal? You're still trying to deny it even with all this evidence in your face, huh? No problem. It's fine if you don't admit it. I have a witness. Today, I must thoroughly expose this bastard's true colors." Following Gao Feng's powerful and resonating rebuke, the press at the scene was ready with their equipment and waited for Gao Feng's next piece of evidence. Unknowingly, everyone was subconsciously following Gao Feng's line of thought. "The day before yesterday, I interviewed Zhao Deyong's neighbor, and after getting permission from him, I recorded this interview." Gao Feng played a recording of the interview. In the video recording, Gao Feng was interviewing a man, and in order to protect the person's identity, the man's face was hidden in the shadows on purpose. Upon hearing that Gao Feng had interviewed his neighbor and seeing that familiar figure on screen, Zhao Deyong's face changed. But at this point, the interview already started. "Gao Feng, based on your impression, what kind of person is Zhao Deyong?" "Neighbor, he's always idling and doesn't do honest work." "Gao Feng, then, does he have any bad habits?" "Neighbor, does gambling count?" "Gao Feng, gambling. Is he really good at it?" "Neighbor, I heard he even gambled away the money that was supposed to be used for his daughter's medical bills. If it wasn't for that superstar's help, his daughter wouldn't be alive today. He's too lucky." "Gao Feng, what do you think about that incident about that superstar allegedly sexually assaulting your neighbor's daughter? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon." "Neighbor, the superstar sexually assaulting my neighbor's daughter? He's really trying to push the blame onto someone else. Not sure who's the one doing all these filthy deeds." "Gao Feng, what do you mean?" "Neighbor, why are you city people so innocent? It means that he's playing with his own daughter." "Gao Feng, your neighbor himself. Why would you say that? That's his own daughter, how could he do something like that? Do you have any proof?" "Neighbor, proof? I'm living right next to him. How could I be unaware of anything that happens around here? The noises from his house every night, tsk tsk tsk. I'm not the only one who heard them. If you don't believe me, you can go around and ask the whole neighborhood." "Gao Feng, what about the little girl's mother, doesn't she care?" "Neighbor, his wife works the night shift, so there's only him and his daughter at home every night. But even when she's at home, she probably wouldn't care. Both husband and wife are black-hearted scum." Very soon, the 10-minute-long interview ended. There were still some interviews with other neighbors, and everyone said they often heard the cries of the little girl, along with Zhao Deyong's obscenities and curses. This interview revealed all the details, it was truly heart-wrenching. Nobody expected that this father, who blatantly said he wouldn't submit to force and would protect his daughter at all costs, was actually a filthy and despicable pedophile. He was so sick in the mind that he would do it to his own daughter. "Zhao Deyong, what else do you have to say for yourself?" Gao Feng asked in a stern tone. Hearing his neighbors calling him out and facing the interrogation from Gao Feng and all the disgusted gazes from the media around him, Zhao Deyong looked as if he was going insane. "What evidence? You call this evidence? Zhao Changbin, that dog, has a grudge against me. That guy is deliberately trying to frame me. Mr. Zhao, there's no smoke without a fire. Furthermore, there's more than one neighbor who called you out. That's because my daughter was being disobedient, I was teaching her a lesson. As the saying goes, spare the rod, spoil the child. It's perfectly fine for parents to reprimand and punish their child when they misbehave." "Oh, so your teaching method is to impose bodily harm and sexually abuse her, is it?" Gao Feng pressed him hard. Zhao Deyong's face was completely red from fury and he breathed heavily like a wild beast. "Fuck. I already said that I didn't. I'm not a pedophile, nor did I sexually abuse my own daughter." Gao Feng's gaze became even colder, and he spoke with even more intensity. "Ha, there's witnesses and evidence presented right in front of you and you're still trying to deny it without feeling the slightest remorse for your actions. You're utterly devoid of a conscience. Touching her private parts, forcing her to give oral sex, they're actually the things you made your daughter do, right? Fuck your father, you garbage reporter. Have you said enough?" Finally, Zhao Deyong couldn't hold it in anymore as he kicked the chair behind him and charged towards Gao Feng, delivering a punch to his face. Gao Feng was solidly punched in the face, half his face immediately swelled up. Zhao Deyong wanted to continue beating him up when a few other reporters and security guards swiftly rushed over and quickly pulled the agitated Zhao Deyong away. Gao Feng wiped the blood from the corner of his lips and spoke bitterly, "Does everyone believe me now? He's not just a pervert, he also has a violent temper, so you can imagine what kind of treatment his daughter had to endure under his hands." Upon hearing that, Zhao Deyong's face contorted in rage as he yelled crazily while trying to charge towards Gao Feng, "I will kill you. I will kill you. Just you wait. You wait." Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Faced with all the evidence presented, Zhao Deyong was not only unremorseful for his actions, he even beat up a reporter at the scene, making everyone's anger skyrocket. The number of clicks and traffic on the live telecast also broke the record as comments flooded the telecast, one after another. "Wow, my 3 views have totally toppled. This scumbag has been lying to us for such a long time. How perverted is he that he's able to do this to his own daughter? He actually called Han Xian you scum when he's the true bastard who's worse than a pig. Monster." After all the cursing, the netizens naturally started thinking from another perspective. Can we believe anything this utterly heartless and inhumane bastard says? Oh my god. Could it be that Han Xianyu was really framed? It's definitely possible. Damn. Our Xianyu was obviously framed from the start, alright? Just because they're weak and poor, all of you stood on their side without figuring out the truth first and refused to give others a chance to speak whenever we said something. You guys said we had brain damage. Now you know who the shameless ones are, huh? Those who are poor must have a reason to sink to such lows. Han Xianyu helped their family, yet they turned around and framed Xianyu like that. If that reporter didn't expose Zhao Deyong's true colors, Xianyu would have carried this shame for the rest of his life. Our little feather waited for this day, waited for the truth to come to light. Xianyu's innocent. I knew Han Xianyu would never do something like that. Late at night in a certain high-class apartment, Fei Yang watched as Gao Feng slowly exposed the true colors of Zhao Deyong. He saw that the media and audience on the live telecast all scolded Zhao Deyong and many of them started doubting Zhao Deyong's words. The grievances Han Xianyu bore instantly reversed due to this situation. It was totally unexpected. Fei Yang was so stirred up that he almost hugged his laptop and cried. Xianyu, are you seeing this? Public opinion is starting to shift. It's really starting to shift. That Mr. Yi is really something, huh? Our worldwide sent people to monitor that bastard, Zhao Deyong, yet they could only dig out useless information about him gambling, drinking, and abusing his wife and child. How exactly did Yi Bai find out Zhao Deyong's a pedophile? Han Xianyu stared at the screen and watched as the angry comments came one after another, cursing Zhao Deyong. He slowly leaned against the backrest of his chair and closed his eyes, not saying a single word. Fei Yang still scolded the pervert in agitation. This bastard, Zhao Deyong, I thought he was just greedy and ungrateful. Who knew he's far more disgusting than that? He's the true pedophile. What's worse is this scumbag didn't even let his own daughter off. Hearing his manager swearing non-stop, Han Xianyu slowly opened his eyes and glanced at him. Yang Ji. You really think Zhao Deyong's a pedophile? Suddenly hearing Han Xianyu posing this question to him, Fei Yang was confused. Isn't he? With all this evidence, how could it not be true? Han Xianyu replied coldly, on the surface, there's indeed a lot of evidence, but if you looked at all of them separately and judged them from the perspective of the law, do you still think the evidence is tenable? Fei Yang calmed down and carefully thought through Han Xianyu's reasoning. Now that you mention it, it seems true. When you look at all the evidence separately, there really isn't anything substantial. For example, that comment Zhao Deyong posted under that video clip, it's not strange for someone as uncultured as him to say something like that. Even if you gather all the evidence from his social media accounts together, you can only prove that he has a tendency towards pedophilia and poor character. If you looked only at the picture of his daughter that he sent, it could be considered as simply showing off his daughter, just like that photo of you lying in bed with those kids. It's a very normal photo if you looked at it alone. As for the statements from the witnesses, it's quite possible that those people held a grudge against him. All they can prove is that he's abusive when he's drunk. Zhao Deyong's neighbors were just like your ex-girlfriend. Their words seemed very believable to the public. With that said, Fei Yang suddenly realized something as he sat there in a daze. Could it be that Zhao Deyong's not a? Han Xianyu spoke softly, it doesn't matter whether he is or not. Hearing Han Xianyu's words, Fei Yang's heart sunk. You're right, it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is whether he's guilty in the eyes of the public. Fei Yang stared closely at the live telecast of the media leaving the hall and tried to make sense of the entire situation. Yi Bai purposely found someone outside Worldwide Entertainment to expose this man because if someone from Worldwide tried to intervene, nobody would believe that person no matter what he said, due to bias. Worldwide did accuse Zhao Deyong of drinking, gambling, and beating his wife and daughter before, but everyone thought Worldwide was just trying to smear Zhao Deyong's name in order to prove your innocence. So instead, Yi Bai worked with Mars Weekly, which was already well established in the industry. He arranged for Gao Feng not to reveal that the comment was posted by Zhao Deyong at first and allowed everyone to speculate and misunderstand before revealing the truth, dropping the bomb on everyone. After destroying Zhao Deyong's fatherly image and exposing his character, everything Gao Feng said afterwards would be more believable to the media. Following that, everything from the photo of his daughter to all those so-called pieces of evidence and finally agitating Zhao Deyong to the point where he beat up a reporter, these were exactly the same things the media did to you. This Yi Bai, he's totally just. Han Xianyu sighed deeply and completed Fei Yang's sentence, giving him a taste of his own medicine. Yi Bai choreographed this entire thing and was simply copying how Zhao Deyong used the media against Han Xianyu, returning everything Han Xianyu went through back to Zhao Deyong. Not only that, Yi Bai's plan was flawless. Even Fei Yang, who worked in the entertainment industry for a long time, couldn't tell, much less those reporters and civilians present today. Since Han Xianyu himself had gone through all this before, he was able to see through Yi Bai's plan. Han Xianyu stared at the retreating figure in the live telecast and an inexplicable feeling bubbled in his chest. He really didn't expect that. Not only did that man pull it off, he even chose to use this method to prove his innocence. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. As Zhao Deyong was emotionally unstable, the press conference was forced to end there. The entrance of Imperial City Grand Hotel was swarmed with reporters and Mr. and Mrs. Zhao had trouble even taking a single step forward. Mr. Zhao, as for the incident of you sexually assaulting your own daughter, do you have anything to say? Mrs. Zhao, did you know about it? Aside from your daughter, did you do it to any other children? The blinding lights all around them with crazy reporters asking all kinds of accusatory questions, along with a pushing crowd made Zhao Deyong quite dizzy. He knocked over quite a number of cameras. Li Qiaohong just kept saying that she didn't know anything and that she had no idea. Hearing all these ridiculous questions, Zhao Deyong was so mad that his lungs were on the verge of exploding. Nonsense. Slander. It's just slander. That reporter was slandering me. I'm not a pedophile. And would never do such things to my own daughter. Are all of you reporters insane? How could you believe such things? Then how do you explain those comments you posted online? Aren't you the one who said such disgusting things to a 5-year-old child and even threatened to violate a netizen's daughter? I spoke without thinking. I didn't actually do it. What about the statements from your neighbors? How do you explain them? That guy has a grudge against me and was trying to frame me. I've already explained it over 100 times. How many times do you want me to explain it? It's possible you could have a grudge with one neighbor, but what about all the other neighbors? There's irrefutable evidence here and you're still trying to deny it? Fuck. Nothing to say, huh? You kept saying that Han Xian you've sexually abused your daughter under the guise of his charitable acts, but truth is, you're the one trying to sell your daughter to him, right? I'll sell your father. Then are you framing Han Xian Yu for the sake of money? The media was frantically questioning Zhao Dayong when they were suddenly distracted by something else. They quickly scrambled off in another direction. It was Gao Feng coming out of the hotel. Reporter Gao, did you doubt Zhao Dayong from the beginning? I was just making a logical conjecture from the information presented to me. Then, Reporter Gao, may I know what's your opinion on the drastic turn of events? Gao Feng glanced at Yan Zhenyang, whose face was very ugly at this moment, and replied leisurely, look beneath the surface and reveal the truth to the public. I was just doing what I had to. I believe the truth will always prevail. Upon hearing Gao Feng's mockery, Yan Zhenyang nearly spit out blood in his rage. All this time, he had been trying to redress an injustice done to Zhao Dayong and was supposed to be the righteous hero, but after what Gao Feng did, his reputation was gone and he became the accomplice harboring that bastard, Zhao Dayong. Yan Zhenyang watched as everything unfolded and tried to find a chance to interrupt, wanting to explain and reverse the situation, to rebuke the absurd and untenable evidence Gao Feng had given. However, not a single person cared about him. Everyone's attention was on the extremely explosive news of a father who sexually assaulted his own daughter. After all, compared to the old news of Han Xianyu sexually assaulting this little girl, the shocking turn of events that the girl's father, who planned to sue Han Xianyu, was actually a pedophile was much more attractive. The media knew very well which news would attract the most attention. He just couldn't understand how things turned this messy when he literally had everything under control before. All this happened through this Mars Weekly, a media outlet about to close down. Or, is there someone orchestrating all this behind the scenes? Just exactly who's so powerful that he designed a strategy like this? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. This bastard. He deserves it. What he's going through now can't be compared to what you went through. Let him have a taste of cyber violence. Fei Yang was done ranting and started worrying again. Yi Bai said he would prove your innocence within 7 days, but according to the current trend, even though the public's opinion has started to shift and increasingly more people are voicing your grievances, what if that moron, Zhao Dayong, wants to continue fighting back? Even if we don't have to worry about the public's opinion anymore and have a solid chance at winning the case, this case is still bad for your name. In the entertainment industry, if the grass is merely trimmed, it'll grow again the next spring, which means that we have to remove the source of the problem. If we don't, it might be exposed and used against us again. After the press conference ended, public opinion shifted as expected. All the criticism and hate previously concentrated on Han Xianyu immediately shifted to Mr. and Mrs. Zhao. Reporters camped around the Zhao's residence. The couple couldn't even go to work and encountered the media and angry civilians everywhere they went. In just 2 short days, Zhao Dayong was fired and blacklisted by every company. His friends and relatives also avoided him like the plague. The media couldn't get to him, so they kept trying to dig up information about him from his family. Zhao Dayong didn't have a very pleasant character to start with, so everyone pushed him down even further. They might as well, since he was already going downhill. Almost everyone interviewed had nasty things to say about him. Li Qiaohong wasn't any better. From the viewpoint of the public, as the child's mother, how could she have no idea what her husband was doing? In their eyes, she assisted the tyrant in victimizing his daughter and colluded with him. At the Zhao's residence, there was clattering and banging in the house. The whole floor was a mess while the little girl hid in her bedroom, not making a sound. Li Qiaohong pulled her luggage in one hand and dragged her daughter in the other. She kept walking forward without looking back. Suddenly, Zhao Dayong grabbed her arm and yelled, "Why the hell are you leaving?" Li Qiaohong screamed, "Why? What else can I do? I want a divorce. I want to leave this place with my daughter. I can't live like this anymore." Zhao Dayong stared at her heavy under-eye bags and said with an ashen face, "Why are you making a fuss? We're swarmed with reporters now. Just wait a few more days. When we get the money, then we can go far, far away." Li Qiaohong jerked his hand away. "Money, money, money, all you think about is money. Now our whole family's been forced to our wits' end. Do you even have the freedom to spend that money? My phone has been ringing non-stop for the past 24 hours, people are scolding me and threatening to kill me. People have peed and splashed feces all over our house, there isn't a single moment when I'm not on my toes. Since you made everything so public, everyone knows our faces now, where can we go? Everyone would recognize us wherever we go. We'll be mocked at no matter where we live. Even our relatives cut ties with us. I told you not to do this, but you didn't listen. Great, now you've offended a celebrity. It's fine if you're the only one implicated in this, but right now, you've even dragged me into this to suffer with you. You even destroyed our daughter's reputation." Li Qiaohong threw everything in her hands and collapsed onto the floor. "What have I done to deserve to suffer like this? Are you trying to drive me to my death? Mommy." The little girl stood helplessly in front of her mother. Li Qiaohong hugged her daughter and started sobbing, "Girl, my poor girl, what have you done to deserve a father like him?" Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Li Qiaohong seemed to have thought of something, her terrified eyes lit up as she stared at Zhao Dayong. "Zhao Dayong, did you really do that to our daughter?" Zhao Dayong nearly fainted in anger when he heard her. "Have you lost your mind? How could you believe what those people said? Lin's my daughter. Even if I scolded and beaten her when I was in a bad mood, I would never do something so despicable. How would I know whether you did it or not? If you could even come up with that wicked idea of framing Han Xianyu for sexually abusing our daughter, how can I be sure you're not lying to me now? You're capable of anything. You, crazy woman. You agreed with this idea too. Now you're putting all the blame on me." Zhao Dayong's head was buzzing from this big fight with his wife. Just at that moment, his phone started ringing again. Zhao Dayong felt like he was going crazy. He picked up the phone and started howling at the person on the other line, "Get lost. Get away from me. I'll kill you if you call again." As he shouted, suddenly, a man's voice came through the receiver, "Mr. Zhao, you don't need to have such a bad temper. I'm here to help you." Zhao Dayong went silent and replied cautiously, "Who are you?" If somebody volunteered to help him before, he would have believed them. But now, how could anyone want to help him? Who I am isn't important. What's important is that I can get you out of your rut and make the media leave you alone. Hearing this person claim that he could make the media stop harassing him, Zhao Dayong was skeptical that this stranger would be so kind, but still, he couldn't help but ask, "Tell me, what do you have in mind to make the reporters stop harassing me? Those reporters are like mad dogs. They won't listen. Tisk, you're a hot piece of news now, obviously they won't let you off easily." The man on the phone laughed and said, "As long as you revoke the lawsuit and the truth comes out, meaning you have to confess to the public saying you were framing Han Xianyu for money, this matter will cease to be a hot topic and the media would subsequently stop paying attention to you." Zhao Dayong was stunned for a moment before yelling, "You think I'm an idiot? You were sent by Han Xianyu, weren't you? If I told the truth, not only would I not get a single cent, I'd have another charge to my name. The only way I would do that is if I was a fool." Hearing Zhao Dayong's anger, the caller kept his composure and replied calmly, "Mr. Zhao, I'm afraid you're the foolish one. You still think you'll be given any compensation at this point, huh? Before, Worldwide offered you a settlement so you wouldn't bring this to court, but that was because of pressure from the public. They were worried that if this case dragged on, Han Xianyu would negatively impact the company's image. But things are different now. The public is on Han Xianyu's side, and Worldwide doesn't need to worry about the public's opinion anymore. As for the evidence you presented, you know yourself that it won't stand in a court of law. Han Xianyu will not be convicted of the crimes brought against him. The caller paused and continued, you could afford to be fearless last time because the whole world was on your side, but right now, TSK. If you tell the truth now, the media wouldn't have any reason to keep digging for secrets and your life would return to normal after a few days. However, if you don't withdraw your suit, there will be no end to it and there will always be people harassing you, pestering you. You'll have to live with harassment from the media and the curses of others for your entire life. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. After taking this stranger's call, Zhao Deyong remained silent for a very long time. The last sentence the man said kept replaying in his mind like a curse. You'll have to live with harassment from the media and the curses of others for your entire life. Only a few days had passed and this was already driving him crazy. He couldn't imagine this dragging on for the rest of his life. Although he wasn't sure who called, everything the man said was true. He was fearless before because the media and public were on his side. But now, nobody believed anything he said, the people who were on his side had turned against him. Not only was he unable to threaten Han Xianyu, he was even despised by everyone. With that thought, Zhao Deyong's final psychological barrier slowly collapsed. A few days later. After the online crusade against Zhao Deyong intensified and angry citizens staged several violent protests, Zhao Deyong posted a note on his Weibo indicating that he would like to have another press conference to clarify the matter and tell the truth. On the day of the press conference, the entire place was flooded with people. It was even more crowded than the last one. The husband and wife hung their heads low and stood in front of the media and an agitated audience with defeated looks. Zhao Deyong looked very haggard and sallow from the vicious attacks from the public. His face was filled with panic and fear. Once the press conference began, he immediately rushed to present the speech he prepared earlier to clear his name. Han Xianyu did not molest or violate my daughter at all. All this was made up by me so that I could receive compensation from him. I was the one who taught my daughter to say those things while I recorded them, and I was also the one who convinced my wife to help me lie to the media. However, I'm really not a pedophile, never have I done those things to my daughter. My only aim from the beginning was to extort some money from Han Xianyu. Upon hearing what Zhao Deyong said, there was a brief moment of silence followed by an uproar. Oh my God! Han Xianyu was really framed. Exactly how cunning is this couple? They could do something so despicable to someone who helped them. They're shameless. Zhao Deyong really wanted the media to let him off, so he apologized with the utmost sincerity. I've already gone to court to revoke the lawsuit. I am sorry. I am deeply sorry to the media that has helped me, sorry to the netizens who supported and cheered us on, sorry to my daughter and wife, and of course, I'm deeply apologetic to Mr. Han Xianyu. I've really learned my lesson. I was greedy and wasn't thinking straight, and I hope everyone can forgive me. Zhao Deyong finished his apology and took a deep bow. Li Qiaohong, who was next to him, also apologized to everyone. When the audience heard the couple's apologies, they felt indignant at the injustice and cursed in rage. They think just an apology will do. They're just playing us like fools. You used our sympathy with evil intentions, you're too much. Those die-hard fans of Han Xianyu were in tears when they heard Zhao Deyong's confession and apology. I knew Xianyu would never do such a thing. The media and netizens had the nerve to defend Zhao Deyong and his wife in the beginning. Aren't they the ones who should be apologizing? Thank God we made it to this day. We finally did it. We waited for this day when the truth comes to light. Justice may be delayed, but it'll always appear. Jean Garden, Yi Wanwan sighed as she watched the live telecast and listened to the crowd shouting that phrase, "Justice may be delayed but it'll always appear," with burning anger. This phrase was originally from the phrase, "Justice delayed is justice denied," which meant that if legal redress was available but wasn't forthcoming in a timely fashion, it was effectively the same as having no redress at all. However, in the process of translation, it slowly evolved into the phrase spoken by the crowd. In her past life, Han Xianyu did manage to get justice in the end, but by then, his entire life was already ruined. What's the point of having delayed justice? Justice delayed is not worthy of being called justice at all. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. At a certain high-class apartment, the moment Zhao Deyong told the truth and apologized, Fei Yang, who was initially suffocated with anxiety, quickly jumped up and exclaimed, "He promised to deliver in 7 days and it really has been 7 days. Not a day more, not a day less. Amazing. I couldn't imagine how Yi Bai was going to prove your innocence, but who would have guessed that he could make Zhao Deyong speak the truth himself? You don't have to worry about having trouble in future. We played our chips right this time. Good thing you believed him during the board meeting. Zhou Wenbin, that bastard, predicted and hoped for your downfall so the company could groom the actor he was managing. Now I'll see if he's still so cocky." Fei Yang was still agitated when he realized Han Xianyu was just staring at his phone, distracted, so he called out to him, "Xianyu. Xianyu. What's on your mind? Did you see it? Zhao Deyong apologized to you publicly." "I saw it." Han Xianyu was still focused on his phone. Fei Yang looked at him and thought, "Are you waiting for Yi Bai's call?" "That's right, it's been several days, why hasn't he called yet?" "I'll call him and ask." Fei Yang went to make a call. In the end, the phone rang for a long time, but nobody answered it. "Why isn't he answering?" Fei Yang mumbled suspiciously. Fei Yang was about to hang up when someone finally answered the phone and a sweet and warm voice came through the receiver. "Hello? Who's this?" Fei Yang was stunned by the girl's voice and then his face froze. You are." Han Xianyu was nearby and could roughly hear that the person who answered was a girl. He furrowed his brows and asked, "Wrong number?" Fei Yang stared at his phone. "No, unless maybe I pressed something else." Why would a woman pick up? "Xianyu, show me the number again." At the same time in Jean Garden, Yi Wanwan had just seen the live telecast and was about to take a shower. While she was looking for something to wear, she heard her phone ring. As it was an unknown number, she didn't think much about it and picked up the call. But once she answered, she heard a somewhat familiar voice that sounded like Fei Yang. Too careless. Yi Wanwan quickly held her phone away for a moment and cleared her throat, quickly switching to a man's voice. "Hello? Manager Fei? I'm Yi Bai." She previously researched about voice-changing techniques and was able to get the knack of it, so her switch was quite smooth. But she would likely encounter this kind of situation again in the future, so she had to be more cautious. Hearing Yi Bai's voice over the phone, Fei Yang then picked up the phone again. "Mr. Yi? I thought I called the wrong number. The person just now was." Fei Yang instinctively tried to figure out who the girl was. Yi Wanwan then replied casually, "That was my friend." "Manager Fei, do you need something?" Fei Yang was deep in thought after hearing Yi Bai's reply. "Friend? It's already so late, could it be his girlfriend? But with his looks, it's normal to have a girlfriend." Fei Yang regained his senses and hurriedly said, "Cough, just call me Fei Yang. It's nothing really, I just wanted to let you know that Xianyu and I watched the live telecast. Bro, you're amazing. Not only did you shift the public's opinion, you even took revenge on this scumbag and proved Xianyu's innocence completely. We're really grateful to you. Let me know whatever you need." "Yang, you're too courteous. I'll get what I want from Chairman Chu myself," Yi Wanwan replied. Seeing that Yi Bai was very direct and honest, Fei Yang's impression of him improved. Alright then. At this moment, Han Xianyu reached out his arm, indicating that he wanted to speak to Yi Bai. Yi Xianyu wants to talk to you. Fei Yang passed the phone over to Han Xianyu. Han Xianyu remained silent for a few seconds before two words came out of his mouth, thank you. Yi Wanwan laughed and replied, if you really want to thank me, give me your autograph someday, alright? I'll give it to my friend. She would be over the moon. Han Xianyu nodded and replied solemnly, sure. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Before going to bed, Yi Wanwan browsed through the web for all the news related to Han Xianyu. Han Xianyu's fans were celebrating and spreading the good news, while the media and netizens all apologized to Han Xianyu and dug out the various kind deeds Han Xianyu did before. Everything worked out great in the end, and to top it all off, Han Xianyu's popularity soared, and even Jiang Yanran, who spoke up for Han Xianyu before being attacked by netizens, gained a little popularity and was given the title of the most beautiful fan. Right now, all that was left to do was pay Chairman Chu a visit so he could honor his promise. The next day at Worldwide Entertainment. Compared to the previous time when she was nearly dragged away by the security guards, Yi Wanwan was treated like a VIP now and was escorted by Chu Hongguang personally to his office. When he saw Yi Wanwan, Chu Hongguang immediately stood up and exclaimed, obviously very pleased, each new generation excels the previous one. Brother Yi, you're really young and capable. The young will surpass us in no time. The young will surpass us in no time. Yi Wanwan replied politely, Chairman Chu, you flatter me. Sit. Sit, sit. Chu Hongguang asked the teenager to take a seat, then instructed his assistant to prepare tea. Chu Hongguang lit a cigar and spoke in a good mood, Brother Yi, the PR was executed perfectly this time. Totally perfect. Not only did we get to keep Xianyu, his popularity even soared, spreading the name of Worldwide far and wide. The way you handled the situation was much more shrewd and ruthless than those old-timers. Brother Yi, you have a rare talent. Not bad, not bad. Yi Wanwan sat there in silence, sipping her tea, holding her temper and listening. After waiting for some time and noticing that Chu Hongguang wasn't going to talk business, she poked at the tea leaves in her teacup and reminded him, glad you're satisfied, Chairman Chu. Then, what about the two things you promised me? Oh, my memory. Chu Hongguang acted like he just remembered as he tapped on his cigar. He took out a stack of documents and pushed it towards her, Brother Yi, don't worry about it, I already prepared everything that you requested. Yi Wanwan lifted her gaze and looked over. On top of the stack of documents was the document for the transfer of the Golden Seas property. Seeing those three utterly familiar words, Yi Wanwan's eyes glistened as she reached her arm to receive it. However, the moment Yi Wanwan's fingers brushed against the documents, Chu Hongguang suddenly spoke up, Brother Yi, to tell you the truth, this property has a very special meaning to me. I like it a lot. But since Brother Yi has done such a huge favor for me, even if it's very hard for me to part with it, I'll still keep my promise. With that, Chu Hongguang reclined in his leather seat and added, Brother Yi, you know very well that this property is indeed priceless. However, you'll be one of us very soon. Let's not be calculative since we're going to be a family. I will never let you suffer losses, then, as long as you give me 70% of the value of this property, the house belongs to you. Chu Hongguang spoke with eagerness. After hearing what Chu Hongguang said, Yi Wanwan's eyes lit up. Chu Hongguang was a famous and sly old fox indeed. Previously, during her negotiations, her intention was to own this property, but now, he changed his mind and wanted to sell it to her. This sly old fox, Chu Hongguang. There's no way he didn't know that 70% of the price is still an astronomical price tag to an ordinary person. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yi Wanwan's face didn't show much emotion and the curvature of her lips was unchanged. She knew this Chu Hongguang would never uphold his promises so generously. But so what? Chu Hongguang expected to see a big change in Yi Wanwan's face, but he noticed there wasn't a trace of anger or unhappiness at all. He found this strange, but still, he kept that hypocritically honest look on his face as he said, "Don't worry, I've already completed the agreement, this property is reserved for you." Yi Wanwan raised her brows, the corners of her lips curled upwards and her alluring eyes slowly lifted, looking straight at Chu Hongguang's fake old face. "Then thank you so much, Chairman Chu." Chu Hongguang wasn't sure what was going on with Yi Wanwan, but after years of experience, he was able to conceal his thoughts deep inside. He pretended to be calm and smiled, then placed a contract in front of her. "I also prepared your position, it's totally customized for you. Take a look at it. If everything looks fine, we'll sign the contract today." "Oh. That's so much trouble for you, Chairman Chu." Yi Wanwan glanced at the contract. When she reached the first page, Yi Wanwan's eyes narrowed. This wasn't a contract for Worldwide Entertainment but a contract for a managerial position at one of Worldwide Entertainment's subsidiary corporations, Dazzling Media. There were many subsidiary corporations under Worldwide Entertainment and Dazzling Media was the weakest among all of them. The only trump card they had was the celebrity under Zhou Wenbin, Gong Su. You could say that Zhou Wenbin had the final say on everything there. Chu Hongguang said sincerely, "Dazzling's current state today is in the pits, the whole company is almost relying on one celebrity alone, it's really giving me a headache. Since your performance this time left me so impressed, after careful consideration, I decided to leave this important task to you. I believe that with your abilities, you can bring Dazzling out of its dire predicament." Yi Wanwan's fingers lightly tapped against the white porcelain teacup as she sneered continuously in her heart. This guy is Chu Hongguang indeed, he actually made the word "banished" sound so nice. Her father fought with Chu Hongguang for many years back in the day, so she already knew of his craftiness. In the circle, he was a famous smiling tiger, he'd swallow you whole with a bright smile on his face. All these tricks by Chu Hongguang, how could she not have guessed it? When Chu Hongguang saw that her execution was flawless this time, he was worried he couldn't dominate her, so naturally, he wanted to display his sovereignty and devised many methods to rein her in. When he noticed Yi Wanwan wasn't speaking, Chu Hongguang pushed another huge stack of documents over. "I already ordered every department in Dazzling to work with you. Also, you may choose any artist to manage at Dazzling other than Gong Su since he's been under Wenbin for such a long time, it's not good for him to switch managers halfway through. I've given you the highest privilege. TSK, choose any artist I want. There isn't a single outstanding artist at Dazzling other than Gong Su, what selection do I have to choose from?" Yi Wanwan didn't speak nonsense like the sly old fox, Chu Hongguang. She simply picked up the name list given to her and looked through it leisurely. On that list, there wasn't a single artist who was star-worthy. The generosity Chu Hongguang mentioned was simply just him trying to rip her off. Yi Wanwan flipped the pages, one by one, in silence. When she flipped to the last page, her fingers paused and her gaze landed on the name in the corner. Luo Chen. His masterpiece was Terrifying Dragon. Yi Wanwan seemed to have a positive impression of Luo Chen since she loved martial arts and obviously watched the classic drama series, Terrifying Dragon. If she remembered correctly, Luo Chen debuted 3 years ago and played the role of a big boss villain in Terrifying Dragon and exploded with popularity overnight. With such a high starting point and his extremely good looks, everything should have gone smoothly for him, but there seemed to be no news of him after his debut. The acting experience stated in Luo Chen's resume was beyond pathetic. Other than Terrifying Dragon, which was his only notable work, he didn't even play a minor character in any show after having been in the industry for 3 years. The only highlight on his resume was the photo of himself. In the photo, with the sunset in the background, the teenager was sitting on a railing in a white t-shirt and jeans, looking into the distance. He had an extremely delicate face and his soft hair was slightly ruffled by the wind, his clear bright eyes filled with vitality. With his looks and classiness, he truly deserved the title, the citizen's first love. Such a pity that there wasn't any news about him for last 3 years. This person who was once called the citizen's first love was slowly forgotten by everyone. Logically speaking, it was impossible for an artist like him who had passed his prime to become famous within a short period of time and help Yi Wanwan land her first pot of gold. However, when Yi Wanwan saw Luo Chen's name, a smile flashed on her face. She already expected that Chu Hongguang wouldn't let her work at the main office and wouldn't let her go anywhere worthwhile. She already predicted that Chu Hongguang would exile her to the barren, down and out dazzling media. And the first artiste Yi Wanwan spotted was Luo Chen. According to her memory, there would be a chance for Luo Chen to explode in popularity again sometime in the near future. As long as she grabbed hold of this opportunity, she'd be able to help Luo Chen rise again. But in her past life, Luo Chen missed this chance just like when he was 18 years old. He was tremendously popular for a moment then suddenly vanished without a trace. After that, Luo Chen's name never ever appeared again. But this time, she wouldn't allow Luo Chen to miss such a good opportunity. She would undoubtedly make Luo Chen's name spread across the entertainment industry once again. With that thought, Yi Wanwan pointed at Luo Chen's information and said directly, "I want him." Chu Hongguang looked at the person Yi Wanwan pointed out and a hint of surprise appeared on his face. "Are you sure?" Chu Hongguang was slightly surprised with Yi Wanwan's choice. There weren't many artistes in dazzling media who had potential, but the person Yi Wanwan chose was even more unattractive than the rest. Even he'd forgotten this person existed. "I'm sure," Yi Wanwan said firmly. Chu Hongguang saw she was very determined and he sneered in his heart. Before, when he witnessed her settling Han Xianyu's incident competently, he thought this Yi Bai was very capable, but from what he saw today, this person had horrible judgment. He hadn't even heard of this artist's name before. He seemed to be very popular from a martial arts series, but he didn't have any other notable works and had no exposure at all. He was just a pretty face without any substance. There were too many good-looking people in the entertainment industry and an overwhelming number of them had looks like his. This Yi Bai was still too young. He had an abundance of ambition but was still lacking in experience. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Chu Hongguang wanted Yi Bai to lose out a little on purpose and was somewhat delighted at this outcome. Thus, he stopped trying to persuade him and whipped out his big pen, signing his name on the document. "All right, this person belongs to you now. Take this and bring it to Wenbin to do some handover procedures and you're good to go." Yi Wanwan also signed the same document. "Thanks, Chairman Chu. I already got someone to tidy up your office, and you'll also receive top treatment at the staff dormitory. You can go take a look today. If there's anything unsatisfactory, do let me know." Chu Hongguang held his beer belly and placed a bunch of keys in front of Yi Wanwan, smiling. "Hee, Yi Bai, do your best. I have high expectations of you." Yi Wanwan took the keys and saw the gold-plated words. Grandview Park. Chu Hongguang didn't cheat her on this. It was indeed the best staff dormitory in worldwide. Many famous managers and stars lived there. Even Han Xianyu stayed there for a period of time before he was famous. "I shall stop by the dorm first, then I'll see how it goes from there after I've settled down." According to her observations, Si Han was just as he'd agreed. He didn't interfere with anything she did, but moving out of Jean Garden wasn't a trivial matter, so she didn't have much confidence in his reaction. After she left the worldwide building, Yi Wanwan tested the waters by sending a text to Si Han, "Baby, I went to worldwide today and got the job. If everything goes smoothly, I'll be able to start work tomorrow. But it's slightly inconvenient if I keep living at Jean Garden, so I think I'll be moving to the staff dorm." Usually, after she sent a text, Si Han would reply almost instantly, but this time, it was like throwing a rock into the big sea. After waiting for a long time without a reply, Yi Wanwan sent a text to Su Yi, "Housekeeper Su, what's Si Han doing? I just sent him a text, has he seen it?" After some time, Su Yi replied, He's in a meeting. He looked at his phone just now, I think he might have seen it." My dear little grandaunt, what did you send him? Although Su Yi didn't mention Si Han's reaction after reading the message, judging from Su Yi's tone, she could roughly guess. He's probably furious. Yi Wanwan supported her head in her hand and let out a sigh. There was no other way. Managers usually didn't live too far from their artistes, most of them even lived with the artistes so they could deal with anything that came up suddenly. It was way too inconvenient for her to live at Jean Garden, she had to move out sooner or later, so this step was unavoidable. I used roses last time, what should I use to coax him this time? Yi Wanwan thought about it for a long time. She returned to Jean Garden, then went to the market to buy some things. After buying all the things she needed, Yi Wanwan noticed it was almost the end of the workday and headed to C Corporation again. The little secretary had a deep impression of him, her eyes sparkled the moment she saw him. Mr. Yi, you're looking for Chairman C. His meeting should be ending soon. I'll bring you upstairs. Yi Wanwan was almost blinded by that pair of eyes, burning with desire for gossip. The corners of her mouth twitched as she nodded politely. Thank you. After they went upstairs, the little secretary led him directly to the staff area opposite the meeting room to take a seat. Chairman C should be done soon. Why don't you wait here? Sure. Yi Wanwan nodded and placed the objects in her hands down. Then, she instinctively glanced towards the meeting room. From her direction, she could look through the glass window and see Si Yi-han in the meeting. The frosty Si Yi-han was speaking to the people inside but seemed to notice her when his gaze paused at her for a moment. Yi Wanwan was about to wave, but Si Yi-han already turned away. The little secretary obviously couldn't leave a VIP alone, so she accompanied Yi Wanwan while at the same time, sneakily sizing him up. The man's facial features were like a drawing, his skin was better than woman's, his flawless profile was simply like a piece of art. He was cupping his chin in his hand at this moment and looked towards the meeting room with a worried expression. The little secretary saw his expression and couldn't help but ask, Mr. Yi, I noticed you don't seem to be in a good mood today, did something happen? The teenager's eyes were fixed on the cool and elegant beauty in the room, and he sighed, Yeah, I'm not in a good mood. Your boss is being difficult. The little secretary. What the hell is with this tone? It's as if he's saying that his girlfriend is throwing a tantrum. My highly revered and immortal boss throws tantrums. The little secretary felt as though her view on life just came crashing down. Time crawled by and just like that, Yi Wanwan had waited outside the boardroom for almost 2 hours. The little secretary stretched her neck to glimpse into the meeting room from time to time and looked somewhat embarrassed. Mr. Su mentioned just now that the meeting would be ending soon. Why is it taking so long? Sorry Mr. Yi, they probably had some problems in the meeting. The boss isn't really throwing a tantrum, is he? After all, he actually ended the meeting earlier last time. It's fine, your work's more important, go and do your own things. You don't have to accompany me here, Yi Wanwan said good-naturedly. The little secretary did have a stack of work to complete. She left reluctantly. At the same time, in the meeting room, according to the schedule, the meeting should have ended way earlier. She wasn't sure why it was taking so long. Yi Wanwan looked at the darkening sky, then glanced through the door at the never-ending meeting. Yi Wanwan couldn't take it any longer and decided to send a text to Si Yi-han. What time will you be done? She was sure she saw Si Yi-han glance at his phone while listening to his subordinate's report. However, he read the message and looked up without reacting to it. All Yi Wanwan could do was keep waiting. After some time, the meeting still hadn't ended, so she sent another text, still not done? After sending so many text messages and not getting a reply, Yi Wanwan laid on the table and typed on her phone sluggishly, The cabbages I bought are almost rotten. When the sky was almost completely dark, Si Yi-han finally walked out of the meeting room. The senior management was tortured so badly that they didn't even linger to gossip and dispersed immediately once they were out. They ran away faster than rabbits, only Su Yi had the courage to follow behind. Han strode forward with his long legs and didn't glance sideways at all. At the same time, he instructed Su-yi, book the next flight to Paris. Su-yi carefully glimpsed sideways at Yuan-wan waiting at the side and didn't dare to delay. He quickly replied, yes, I'll do it right away. Hearing his footsteps, Yuan-wan saw that Han had finally come out, so she immediately stood up, but the next instant, she heard Han would be going overseas. Yuan-wan was stunned. She wanted to speak, but then a crash resounded. Since she stood up too quickly, everything in the big bag she was brought fell to the ground. There were vegetables, meat and ingredients for preparing a steamboat. Aside from this, there was also some toothbrush, towels and daily necessities, probably items she prepared for her move to the dormitory. After seeing the items on the ground, Han's expression became much colder. However, in the next second, he noticed that the daily necessities Yuan-wan prepared, toothbrush, towel, bathrobe and slippers, were all in pairs. One set was in pink and the other set was in blue. Furthermore, they were all the brands he usually used. She probably got the servants at Jean Garden to prepare them for her. After he saw those sets of daily necessities, Han's face changed and he stopped in his tracks. Yuan-wan bent down and picked up the things one by one. After that, she lifted her little face and mumbled, "Are you going overseas?" "I found a job, and I was planning to celebrate with you." The man pursed his lips and replied expressionlessly, "No, Su-yi's going." "Su-yi, huh? Aren't you going?" Yuan-wan's worried little face brightened up instantly. "No," a certain someone replied, without a change in expression. Su-yi was totally dumbfounded. "Master, how could you do this? Since when was I going overseas? Aren't you the one who's going? Have you forgotten that you just approved my annual leave today?" Su-yi already somehow understood Yuan-wan's situation. Although his master agreed to let her roam freely outside, his intention was to let her suffer for a bit, then she would return to him out of her own volition. Who knew that since his master let her out, not only did she not encounter any difficulties, she even thrived outside, becoming more and more out of his control. She would seize any opportunity to hide further and further away, so how could his master not be mad? He initially thought that his master's fury would last longer this time, but it turned out this woman didn't plan on moving out herself, she even wanted to bring his master along. In the end, a certain housekeeper watched with a tear-stained face as a certain boss of his, who was supposed to be flying to Paris, followed Yuan-wan to their new place. Just like that, he was forced to go overseas instead. Grandview Park, this is the place. Yuan-wan opened the door, turned on the lights and gave Han a pair of slippers. Han scanned the interior of the place with his icy gaze. He then saw the boxes Yuan-wan stacked against the wall and his dark eyes grew dimmer. Yuan-wan didn't bring many things over, obviously just treating this place as a temporary spot for the convenience of her work. But instead, she prepared quite a few items for him, he had everything he needed there. Even the slippers on his feet were the same ones he had at Jean Garden. Yuan-wan brought the ingredients to the kitchen and mumbled, "Actually, this dorm isn't bad but I was worried that you wouldn't be used to living here, so I got the servants at home to prepare a set of things you usually use." "Oh, I considered even bringing Great White along to play, but I was afraid it would frighten everyone. Thankfully, I won't be staying here often unless duty calls." "Oh right, baby, do you eat that?" Yuan-wan was busy washing the vegetables when all of a sudden, something tightened around her waist and in the next second, she was forced into a warm embrace. At that moment, that familiar, distinct cool breath overpowered her and assaulted all her senses. Being hugged by him from the back without warning, Yuan-wan blinked and stopped what she was doing. "What's wrong?" Behind her, he didn't say a word as he tightened his grip around her, planting cold kisses on her ear, her neck. Ding! Just at that moment, the doorbell suddenly rang. Yuan-wan hurriedly turned her head and said, "There's someone at the door." The gloominess in Han's eyes bubbled up, obviously unhappy at being interrupted. Be good. I'll go see who it is, it might be someone from the company. Today was her first day moving in, so only the company knew she was here. Did Chu Hongguang send someone over? Si Han rarely revealed his face outside, so nobody knew who he was. It wouldn't be a problem even if someone saw him. Thus, Yi Wanwan wasn't worried at all. After calming Si Han down, Yi Wanwan went to get the door. Coming, Yi Wanwan pulled open the door. The moment she opened the door, all she saw was that dazzling face and Yi Wanwan was taken aback. Han Xianyu. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yi Wanwan saw Han Xianyu suddenly at her door with various plastic bags in his hands and came to her senses only after being in a long shock. She said with a startled expression, "You. I heard from Yang Ji that you just moved next door, so I came over to visit," Han Xianyu replied politely. Yi Wanwan then immediately glanced in the direction of the room next to hers. You live here? Han Xianyu replied helplessly, "At first, I was living at the villa in East City District, but as you know, due to the recent incident, all my private addresses were leaked, so I'm staying here for the time being." Only then did Yi Wanwan understand clearly. I see. Yi Wanwan looked at Han Xianyu as she finished speaking. He was wearing a pair of jeans, a black leather jacket over a printed top and a pair of white sneakers. He had an arrow-shaped silver stud in his left ear and his short brown hair was slightly messy. It was a very casual look. He looked free and easy, yet handsome. Since he had remarkable looks and was always in front of the camera, just the image of him simply standing there was picture perfect. However, the most attractive part of him was his pair of eyes gleaming like two clusters of flames. Compared to that sallow and gloomy look she saw the other day in the worldwide conference room, the Han Xianyu at this moment looked so much better. The impression she had of Han Xianyu in her head was that he could send his fans screaming but would also be humble enough to bend over backwards to help the elderly. He drove a red Ferrari and sped down the street but also fed the stray cats on the streets. He seemed to be unruly and cool on the outside, but he was kind and soft-hearted on the inside. He was as free as the wind, dazzling like there was a sun shining fiercely over him and could infect everyone around him with his enthusiasm and kindness. This was the true Han Xianyu. In her past life, she liked this artist, Han Xianyu, also because she was moved by his zeal and carefree attitude. And because he was so perfect, it was a great pity when he fell from grace in her previous life. Thankfully, in this life, this bright star was still sparkling brightly. Han Xianyu felt his heart inexplicably tense up by the stare from that pair of watery eyes. He coughed lightly and said, "I hope I'm not disturbing you." Yi Wanwan quickly regained her senses and responded, No, of course not, quick, come in." Such a coincidence that Han Xianyu was her neighbor and he even came to visit. See Han's still inside though, what should I do? But Han Xianyu's carrying so many things and he came over personally to pay me a visit, I can't just reject him, right? Yi Wanwan didn't have any other choice but to let him in. Thankfully, she was dressed as a man right now, so it was very safe. On the other hand, Han Xianyu had just entered when he saw someone sitting on the sofa. He was stunned. Purely because that man's look and temperament were too eye-catching. He had always been very confident about his looks. Whenever he posted a photo of himself, there would be countless fans who lauded praise on him, but compared to this man before him, he was suddenly much dimmer. If Xianyu was handsome, this man could disrupt a country. This is... Han Xianyu asked subconsciously. This is my friend, C. 9th C. Yi Wanwan gave a simple introduction then looked at Si Han nervously and said, Ajio, this is Han Xianyu. He's a very famous actor and I've told you about him before. Yi Wanwan swallowed her saliva after speaking and prayed in her heart that Si Han wouldn't explode. A second went by, 2 seconds went by, 3 seconds went by. Si Han's cold gaze paused at Han Xianyu for a brief moment before he finally said without expression, Hey. Han Xianyu nodded slightly. Hi. This guy's aura is too intimidating, the way he looks at me makes me shudder. Han Xianyu looked at Yi Wanwan and probed, your friend, is someone in the industry as well? Seeing that Si Han didn't explode, Yi Wanwan heaved a sigh of relief and replied, no he's not, he's a businessman. Han Xianyu nodded as if everything made sense. If he was someone in the industry, he would have been explosively popular with his dashing appearance. There was no way he hadn't seen him before. Yi Wanwan tried to be hospitable to her guest, Han Xianyu, and said, make yourself at home, I just moved here today so everything's still unpacked. It's a little messy around here. What would you like to drink? I think I have plain water and I'll check if I have any tea leaves. Han Xianyu hurriedly said, you don't have to trouble yourself, plain water's fine. You did a great favor for me and I haven't had the chance to thank you yet. I was planning to treat you to a meal tonight but you seem to have a guest. Yi Wanwan poured a glass of water for him. Mr. Han, you're too polite. I already mentioned before that you don't have to thank me. I know, but Chairman Chu is Chairman Chu and I am me, it's different. If it wasn't for you, I'm sure things would have turned out very differently. Han Xianyu concealed the shadows in his eyes. His gaze turned warmer when he looked at the teenager as he smiled, I've been thinking about how to thank you but I haven't thought of a suitable way that wouldn't be too unobtrusive. How about I introduce a girlfriend to you? Yi Wanwan nearly stumbled and dropped the glass in her hands. She anxiously turned to look at a certain someone sitting on the sofa and quickly rejected the offer, cough cough, no thanks, I've got a girlfriend already. And that person is sitting right there, all right. Han Xianyu thought to himself, he has a girlfriend already. Could it be that woman over the phone the other night? I see, all right then. Let me know when you're free. I must treat you to dinner. Han Xianyu was very firm on that. Even though was dressed as a man right now, if Yi Wanwan agreed to another man's invitation in front of Si Han, she'd still be courting death. As expected, when she took a glance at Si Han, she noticed his face had changed the moment Han Xianyu offered to introduce a girlfriend to her. However, Han Xianyu was very firm about it so it was really hard to reject him. Just as Yi Wanwan felt stuck in this difficult situation, Si Han actually replied graciously, Mr. Han, you should stay and eat with us. Hearing Si Han's words, Yi Wanwan was simply overwhelmed with her own brilliance. My idea of dressing up as a man was indeed a brilliant one, Si Han is so easygoing now, it's unbelievable. Yi Wanwan heaved a sigh of relief. She looked at Han Xianyu and said, you really don't have to take me out. How about this, my friend's here to visit and we're preparing to have hot pot at home. If you don't mind, why don't you join us? Han Xianyu didn't mind at all. Sure, it's more convenient at home anyway, but shouldn't I be the one treating you? We're all brothers, we don't have to be so calculative with one another. Don't be wishy-washy, it's settled. I'll go prepare the veggies. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. As Si Han's phone suddenly rang, he stood up and walked to the balcony to take the call. Han Xianyu didn't have the air of an entitled superstar, he felt embarrassed he wasn't doing anything to help, so he headed to the kitchen to lend Yi Wanwan a hand. But what he saw was the teenager's sleeves casually rolled up with the water flowing on his frosty white skin. Han Xianyu felt lost in another world. This Yi Bai, not only does he have the looks, even his figure is more stunning than a woman's. This kind of guy who looked better than most women was very trendy the past few years in the entertainment industry. Fresh meat in the industry usually brought shame to many women. There were some guys like this by his side already, but none of them was like Yi Bai. Those deliberately manufactured and so-called pretty boys were like fake plastic flowers, their behavior and actions were all pretentious, but Yi Bai was like an oasis in the desert of an unbroken chain of dunes, her ingeniousness and willfulness able to blow out the fires of the world. Han Xianyu caught himself staring in a daze at that man. He quickly shook his head and returned to his senses and said, let me help you. After speaking, he took the vegetables by the side, started washing them and said, Mr. Yi, I heard you signed on to Worldwide. Don't keep calling me Mr. Yi, it sounds so awkward. Just call me by my name. Yi Wanwan didn't bother hiding the truth and replied honestly, yes, I did sign with Worldwide and completed the agreement with Chairman Chu today. Han Xianyu always wondered what conditions Yi Bai discussed with Chairman Chu previously, so it was a chance to work with Worldwide. Only looking at Yi Bai's exceptional personality and appearance, he would make a great artiste, but with his competence, it wasn't strange that he'd chosen to be a manager. Han Xian knew that it even suited him better. Mr. Y. Yi Bai, which company are you going to work with? Han Xianyu asked. Dazzling Media, Yi Wanwan replied. Hearing these two words, Dazzling Media, Han Xianyu's brows raised slightly. However, it wasn't surprising when he thought about it. He sneered, Chairman Chu doesn't trust anyone easily, so he wouldn't allow you to enter headquarters so easily. But it's also better this way, the headquarters and stronger subsidiaries are basically saturated with people already and they all have their respective social circles and networks. Without qualifications or a strong network, it'd be too difficult for you to enter those companies at a mid-level position. There's only Zhou Wenbin working at Dazzling today, so by starting there, it'll be much easier for you. I thought so too, Yi Wanwan nodded. Considering that she had to start working at Dazzling the next day, she tried probing further, oh right, what's Zhou Wenbin like? He seems to have a good character from what I heard. As she paid a bit of attention to the artist managed by him, Gong Su, she knew a little about Zhou Wenbin as well. Gong Su was infamous for his bad temper. He was also reported as being hard to please and big-headed. Although he was just as qualified as Han Xianyu, he had too many scandals and bad records that he was unable to surpass Han Xianyu and had countless managers before Zhou Wenbin. Only Zhou Wenbin was able to handle him. Usually, in front the public eye, Zhou Wenbin acted like a gentleman and was kind towards others. Once Yi Wanwan mentioned the name Zhou Wenbin, Han Xianyu's face turned cold. Tisk, he's just faking it for the media and public. Everyone in the industry knows what kind of man he is. Anyway, he's definitely not who you think he is. Be very cautious when you have dealings with him in case he tries to get you into trouble. Yi Wanwan nodded gratefully, thanks for the advice, I'll be careful. If Han Xianyu dared to speak the truth to me like that, it means he really doesn't see me as an outsider. When Si Han was done with his phone call and returned, he saw Yi Wanwan and Han Xianyu having a nice chat while washing the vegetables in the kitchen. There was a kind of relaxation and genuineness on the girl's face as she looked at Han Xianyu, the kind that never appeared when she looked at him. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. The three of them sat around the table. Han Xianyu sat at one side while Yi Wanwan and Si Han sat opposite. Han Xianyu felt like something was amiss and said, "Do you guys want some wine? I have a bottle of exquisite wine at my place." Yi Wanwan knew Si Han didn't like her drinking. She subconsciously glanced at Si Han and replied, "Sorry, I don't drink. How about the two of you go ahead?" Han Xianyu was a little disappointed, but he didn't force Yi Wanwan and turned to the man sitting opposite and asked, "Mr. Si, can you hold your liquor well?" Si Han seemed distracted with a thin layer of frost covering his face and seemed somewhat distant as he replied plainly, "I'm not bad." "Sure, I'll go get the wine, the two of us shall drink." Han Xianyu returned with a bottle of red wine very quickly. "This bottle of Romani Conti was gifted by my friend from France. It's really hard to get. I've been reluctant to open it since he gave it to me." "Yi Bai, you really don't want some? Anyway, you're at home. It's fine even if you get drunk." Han Xianyu tried persuading her. Yi Wanwan sighed, "My girlfriend doesn't really like me drinking." Han Xianyu broke into laughter, "She's so strict. She's not even here now, you're so obedient." Yi Wanwan, "Problem is that she's right here, right now, okay?" Han Xianyu teased her before the three of them started chatting, drinking and eating hot pot. Although it was indeed a little weird to have red wine paired with hot pot, what was important was the atmosphere, and the three of them didn't seem to mind at all. During the meal, most of the talking was done by Han Xianyu and Yi Bai. The person next to Yi Bai had very little to say and didn't eat much as well. He drank most of the time and only ate when Yi Bai placed some dishes in his bowl. The man twirled the glass of red wine lightly with his slender fingers. Judging by his actions, Han Xianyu felt this friend of Yi Bai's didn't come from a simple background and had a high status. His movements could only be formed if he had mixed in environments of nobility for a long time. It was a big difference compared to artistes who were specially trained to act this way in front of the public. The man's other arm rested naturally on the backrest of Yi Bai's chair. Only Yi Bai and Han Xianyu conversed the whole time. The man didn't say a single word, yet there was an inexplicable feeling hovering between the man and Yi Bai, a kind of feeling that outsiders would never be able to replicate. Ajo, eat some more. Why do you only keep drinking? Han Xianyu, why are you also eating so little? Yi Wanwan, whose head was buried in her bowl and ate non-stop, realized that she seemed to be the only one eating. Si Han didn't even take any food for himself while Han Xianyu only had a few pieces of vegetables. Han Xianyu replied helplessly, everyone working in the industry is like this, we have to watch our diet. Yi Wanwan suddenly rejoiced for choosing to be a manager instead. Your job's not easy at all, you can't even eat your fill. Han Xianyu shrugged, no choice, everyone says you look 5 kilograms fatter on screen. If you want to look good on television, you have to be skinnier than the average person. Those skinny artistes that people usually see on television are actually as skinny as twigs in real life. Yi Wanwan nodded continuously, you're like that too, still dieting when you're already so skinny. The two of them were chatting away when someone's phone suddenly rang. It was Si Han's phone. Si Han placed his glass of wine down and raised the phone to his ear, hello. Si Han didn't speak for a while. After listening to the caller for a bit, he replied in a low and hoarse voice, call Director Jiang to head over first. I'll be there soon. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yi Wanwan stared at Si Han, nibbling at her food until he hung up. You're leaving. I have to deal with some issues. Si Han stood up. Oh, work's more important, you should get going. Yi Wanwan stood up, grabbed Si Han's coat and prepared to send him off. Han Xianyu also stood up and followed behind to send him off. He drank quite a bit. Can he drive? Is the driver around? Yi Wanwan asked. Si Han, yes. Yi Wanwan was relieved and passed his coat to him, stay safe on the roads. Although he drank quite a bit, Si Han didn't look any different from normal and seemed very sober. That, not bad, comment about his capacity for liquor was a little too humble. Upon hearing Yi Wanwan's nagging, Si Han took the coat without a word and fastened the buttons on his suit one by one. Then he simply replied, N. You drank quite a bit today, get someone to make you some soup to sober up when you get home. Yi Wanwan said as she pushed the door open. Si Han stared at her and didn't say anything. He lowered his head to fasten the last button and under everyone's gaze, he pinched Yi Bai's chin with his long and slender fingers, then bent down and planted a kiss on his lips. After that, he said, all right. Yi Wanwan, Han Xianyu. After she recovered from what just happened, a resounding blast occurred in Yi Wanwan's head. And Han Xianyu looked as if he had just been struck by lightning. What just happened? The blast in Yi Wanwan's head was earth-shattering. She was so anxious that her soul nearly spilled out of her body. She couldn't believe the perpetrator simply kissed her, pushed the door open and left her in this mess. After a whole 10 seconds, Yi Wanwan finally regained her senses and turned to look stiffly at Han Xianyu. Han Xianyu, let me explain. Si Han was incredibly calm that night, which allowed her to lower her guard, thinking all was well as long as she dressed as a man. It never occurred to her that he would catch her off guard and ruin everything with that move. She was on the verge of going crazy. How could she explain this to Han Xianyu? My friend's an American-born Chinese. He grew up overseas, so he's more open-minded and likes to joke around. Ha, ha. She actually used Su Yi's explanation back from the office the other day in the heat of the moment. Damn it. What comes around really goes around. As for Han Xianyu's reaction to this explanation, more open-minded? Likes to joke around? Sure. Your friend's obviously not the jovial type. Even if he is, kissing another man before leaving isn't really considered a joke, is it? Yi Wanwan knew her explanation was quite ridiculous, but she could only muster up her courage and continue. He's like that whenever he's drunk. He likes to joke, and sometimes I'll even call him baby. There were 2 guys in my dorm before who kept hugging each other in order to attract girls' attention, one big group of men pouncing on one another, even crazier than gay guys. It was really hard to watch. Han Xianyu listened to Yi Wanwan as she went on this rant with a straight face. He was convinced. He thought Yi Wanwan's explanation was logical but also felt like something wasn't right somewhere. Oh, I see. Yi Wanwan immediately replied, of course I'm a straight guy. I have a girlfriend. Han Xianyu looked sideways at Yi Bai and swallowed the words on the tip of his tongue. Even if you're straight, that friend of yours doesn't really look like he is. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Early morning at dazzling media office. The office at the end of the top floor had a very lavish interior. There were a few medieval oil paintings and a vintage animal horn hung on the wall, and a gorgeous enamel flower vase on the table reflected the splendor of the sun's rays. Zhou Wenbin had a cup of black coffee in his hand and lay comfortably on his genuine leather sofa, looking very content. The man donned a custom-made Armani suit and wore a limited edition Patek Philippe watch on his wrist. His hair was neat and shiny. Even though he was already past middle age, over 40 years old, he maintained his image well and looked to be in his early 30s at most. At this moment, there was someone sitting opposite Zhou Wenbin. He had on a slightly old white t-shirt and washed jeans, simple black hair and a clean face without any makeup. His back faced the sun. In the shadows, you could see his immaculate face, delicately carved out by the creator. But his eyes were dim, his thin lips were pale and a cold aura emanated from his entire being. Zhou Wenbin took a leisurely sip of his coffee and looked straight into the other guy's eyes with determination. Luo Chen, what do you think? Have you decided? Luo Chen's figure was unusually frail but his back was upright. When he heard this, his stiff back shuddered slightly and his eyes were ice-cold, but very quickly, that cold light was engulfed by the gloominess in his eyes, revealing desperation and defeat. At this moment, there was a dong dong dong. Someone knocked on the door and interrupted the dead silence in the room. A plump man in a gray suit rushed inside with his head covered in sweat. He exclaimed in anxiety once he saw Zhou Wenbin. Director Zhou, we're in trouble. The elegant and relaxed Zhou Wenbin furrowed his brows from being interrupted and he turned to the intruder unhappily. It's so early in the morning, what are you shouting about? The fatty replied anxiously, Director Zhou, the top boss didn't even call to let us know and suddenly sent a new manager over. He'll be coming over today and we all have to cooperate with him. What do you think Chairman Chu meant by this? Although Dazzling was at the bottom of the list of subsidiaries owned by Worldwide, it was, after all, still under the banner of Worldwide. As the saying goes, he who leans on a good tree will have a good shade. Compared to the other smaller firms, they were still much better. It wasn't an easy task to enter Dazzling as either an artist or manager. You had to have relevant work experience and educational background, not to mention you had to overcome all challenges presented during the interview. Only after passing these tests could you be a part of Dazzling. It was quite demanding. The main point was that Zhou Wenbin was the boss. Whoever wanted to enter the company had to first get his nod of approval, in addition to approval from the managers. A new manager coming over so suddenly with such extensive privileges, nobody could accept this, especially not somebody entering Zhou Wenbin's faction, so this attracted quite a bit of attention. Zhou Wenbin narrowed his eyes and a gloominess came over his face as he sneered, "That Yi Bai guy?" The fatty nodded continuously, "Right, right. That's his name." "Director Zhou, you knew about it?" Zhou Wenbin seemed to be deep in thought as his face contorted even further. "He's just a greenhorn. You think he can succeed when he's in my territory? Just go about doing what you need to do. Stop making a big fuss out of every little thing." "Ha, this brat. I didn't expect him to actually use Gao Feng from Mars Weekly to shift the public's opinion. In the end, he really cleared Han Xianyu's name and ruined my plans. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon." Initially, the plan was once Han Xianyu went down, the company would have chosen to groom Gong Su to replace Han Xianyu, but now, not only was Han Xianyu acquitted, his popularity even soared higher. Once again, Zhou Wenbin was pinned down by Fei Yang. With that thought, Zhou Wenbin sneered, "Yi Bai, very well. He ruined my plans, and he still dares to act recklessly in my own territory. This is a good time to settle all scores with him." Hearing the boss say that, the fatty calmed down and immediately sucked up to Zhou Wenbin. With Bin Ji around, nobody else would be able to succeed around here. The fatty praised him repeatedly while discreetly looking across at the pale teenager on the sofa. "Anything else?" Zhou Wenbin glanced at him unhappily. "No. Nothing else." "If there's nothing else, then why don't you get lost?" Zhou Wenbin's mind was obviously focused on Luo Chen right now, so he was very upset at being interrupted. Yes, I'll get lost now. Right now." The fatty left stealthily and even closed the door shut on purpose. After the fatty left, there were suddenly only 2 people left in the enormous office. Zhou Wenbin lightly rapped on the table with his fingers and a hint of impatience appeared on his face. "Luo Chen, there's a limit to my patience." Luo Chen seemed to suffer some sort of grievance as his eyes constricted and turned icy. Zhou Wenbin saw that and backtracked, saying gently, "Luo Chen, look at you. Why are you so stubborn? What's so bad about being with me?" Zhou Wenbin walked towards Luo Chen slowly. He dragged his words out and continued, "As long as you're obedient, not only will I settle your mother's medical bills, I will even make you famous." As Zhou Wenbin got closer, Luo Chen's body was as stiff as a board. His hands by his side clenched tightly like he was about to explode in the next second. Zhou Wenbin was sure he wouldn't dare to go against him, so he chuckled and got even closer, placing his hand on Luo Chen's shoulder. "Luo Chen, you've resisted me for 3 years already. Are you sure you want to continue being so stubborn? There are only a few golden years for an artist. Do you still have another 3 years to waste? Did you know? If you cooperated with me earlier, with your caliber, you should have almost the same standing as Gong Su in the entertainment industry by now. Who knows, you might have even surpassed Han Xianyu." Zhou Wenbin wheedled, but Luo Chen's thin lips were pursed tightly. He refused to speak. Seeing that his lips were pursed so tightly, not letting even a drop of oil or grain of salt get between them, Zhou Wenbin snorted, his tone full of mockery, "Luo Chen, don't tell me you think you can endure until the end of your contract and leave me right after?" Zhou Wenbin sighed and shook his head sympathetically. "You're really a naive and silly kid. I can help you while you're with Worldwide, but you think that after leaving Worldwide I'd allow you to have a chance to succeed?" There was finally some change in Luo Chen's face as he spoke with an unusually hoarse voice. What should I do, for you to let me off?" Zhou Wenbin's fingers slowly slid down Luo Chen's slim neck and his breathing got heavier. "Luo Chen, you're a smart guy. You know very well what I want, don't you? And I, Zhou Wenbin, will get what I want. I am not gay." Luo Chen raised his voice, enunciating each word carefully. "Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Zhou Wenbin sneered, so what? Luo Chen, you've been in this industry for so long. Don't tell me you're still so innocent. Do you know how Zhao Mingkai got famous? He's not better than you in any way, but in just half a year, he's already become a second-tier star. All because I helped him pull some strings with Chairman Liang. As long as someone's willing to pay to groom you, who cares if your financial backer is male or female? Unless you're like Gong Su, a super-rich second-generation kid born with a silver spoon and a millionaire father as your backer, giving you tons of money to play with. Otherwise, you have to play by the rules of this industry. Zhou Wenbin changed his tone and spoke patiently, Luo Chen, don't be so rigid. When I'm done having fun, I'll introduce a financial backer to you, then. Luo Chen couldn't endure it anymore. He punched the teapot in front of him like a caged beast and yelled, shut up. I want a change of manager. Zhou Wenbin was stunned at first, then he burst out laughing as if he just heard a great joke. Ha ha ha, you want a change of manager? Sure. Sure. Apply for it with the office. I want to see who would want you in worldwide. Zhou Wenbin's face darkened when he said the last word. Fresh blood trickled from the hand Luo Chen used to smash the teapot as he stared at Zhou Wenbin with overwhelmingly murderous intentions. The drops of fresh red blood and his porcelain fair skin contrasted very obviously, making him even more dangerously enticing, while his eyes in such extreme fury were also extremely beautiful at the same time, like a blossoming flower. Zhou Wenbin's muddy eyes were clouded with lust as he pounced on Luo Chen. Luo Chen, don't worry at all. As long as you're obedient, I'll never let you suffer. Get lost. Luo Chen, it's fine if you're just thinking for yourself, but what about your mother? Do you want her to suffer with you? The punch Luo Chen initially wanted to throw at Zhou Wenbin's face paused in midair. When Zhou Wenbin saw this, he quickly grabbed the opportunity and lunged straight for Luo Chen's mouth. Just at this exact moment. Bang! The door of the office was kicked open. The door slammed against the wall, letting out an earth-shattering bang. A slender figure stood at the door, blocking the light. He had a carefree vibe and a smirk on his dark red lips, his gleaming and watery peach blossom eyes were slightly raised. As if he was walking in his own backyard, the man straightened the corners of his shirt and strolled inside. He stared sideways at Zhou Wenbin, who was in disbelief with his face as red as a pig's liver. He said leisurely, Tisk, it's so early in the morning and great manager Zhou, you're in such a good mood, huh? When he saw clearly who barged in, Zhou Wenbin almost crushed his own teeth as he yelled, Yi! Bye! This brat again! On the sofa, Luo Chen pushed Zhou Wenbin away harshly and looked in panic towards the door at the stranger who just emerged. I'm so sorry, nobody answered when I knocked, so I thought something happened to you. Yi Wanwan lied, without showing the slightest fear. After she met Luo Chen's panic-stricken eyes, she lifted her legs and kicked the door shut without any expression on her face, blocking off this sight from the outside world. What are you doing here? Zhou Wenbin nearly spewed out blood from Yi by ruining his plans once again. Yi Wanwan stretched out her arms and pulled out a chair, sat down lazily and waved a file at him. I came here to report for work. Director Zhou, I'll need to trouble you to go through the handover with me. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Zhou Wenbin straightened his collar and walked over, holding in his anger. He scanned the document, it was indeed for the handover. Zhou Wenbin's face darkened as he flipped through the contracts and documents in a rush. He then took out a pen and signed his name. Zhou Wenbin took a deep breath, is that all? Yup, I appreciate it. Yi Wanwan accepted the document, satisfied. Get lost then. Zhou Wenbin was fuming. It took him 3 whole years and finally, he was able to settle things with that Luo Chen. But in the end, this brat ruined his plans. He had more than enough time to deal with this brat, Yi Bai, who thought so highly of himself, but he'd never let Luo Chen off today no matter what. Luo Chen knew full well that Zhou Wenbin wouldn't let him off so easily today, seeing as Zhou Wenbin sent the guest off so impatiently. Since the business deal between the two of them was almost done, he turned pale, knowing that once that stranger left, he'd be all alone with Zhou Wenbin once again. As expected, after Zhou Wenbin signed the documents, the man didn't outstay his welcome and stood up. It was as if Luo Chen fell into an ice cave. His heart sank the ground. However, the moment the man stood up, that pair of dazzling eyes looked towards him. He heard the man speaking in his direction. "You're Luo Chen. Follow me, then." Luo Chen looked at the man in shock and was totally dumbfounded. Was he talking to me? Not only was Luo Chen stunned, even Zhou Wenbin's face changed. "Yi Bai. What do you mean by this?" The man frowned. His slender and fair fingers pointed at a few words in the document. "Didn't you read the contract just now, Director Zhou?" "Read what?" Zhou Wenbin said in annoyance. The man smiled wryly and shot him a look, then spoke languidly, "Luo Chen belongs to me now." What did you just say?" Zhou Wenbin's face stiffened. The teenager in the corner was in a daze as well, looking like he couldn't understand Yi Bai's words. "I said Luo Chen now belongs to me." The man repeated himself. Zhou Wenbin sneered, "Ha, he belongs to you. What nonsense. Luo Chen has been signed under my name for 3 years. Who are you to take him away?" The man spoke in a matter-of-fact tone. It was written very clearly in the documents you just signed. Zhou Wenbin didn't read through those documents carefully at all. When he heard what the man said, he took a big stride forward and read the document once again. As he read, his face got uglier as he exploded in a roar, "This is impossible." Yi Wanwan shrugged. This was what Chairman Chu agreed to personally. He has already signed on the documents as well, so if you don't believe me, you can call and ask him yourself. Zhou Wenbin stared at the documents for a very long time and finally, slammed on the desk. He glared at him with a darkened face and gritted his teeth. "I'll definitely call him." Yi Wanwan wasn't worried at all as she walked over to the sofa leisurely and sat down. She poured a cup of tea for herself and used the lid of the cup to lightly push the tea leaves. She pursed her lips and said lazily, "Director Zhou, please go ahead. But do hurry, I have to quickly deal with the injuries on my artiste." At the same time, Luo Chen stood a few steps away and stared blankly at the man who suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Hearing Yi Bai call Luo Chen, "my artiste," right in his face with such arrogance, Zhou Wenbin simmered with rage. Nobody dared to defy him at dazzling all these years, so how could a little brat like this step over him and disrespect him like this? Thus, he called Chairman Chu on the spot and even turned on the video. Zhou Wenbin was the top manager at Dazzling Media. 90% of Dazzling's revenue came from the artistes under him. Just Gong Su alone was enough to secure his position, so his words definitely held weight at headquarters. He was a veteran at the company while this clown was just a young manager who just entered. It wasn't hard to guess whose side Chu Hongguang would stand on. The glimmer of hope just ignited in Luo Chen was once again extinguished by a pail of cold water. "Hello, Chairman Chu. Have you met Yi Bai? Have you finished the handover?" In the video call, Chairman Chu was seated in the big mahogany chair in his office. Zhou Wenbin looked coldly towards Yi Bai and said, "He's here right now and I was about to bring this issue up." "What is it? Is there a problem?" Chairman Chu naturally noticed Yi Bai in the video call as well. "Chairman Chu, I reviewed the handover documents and the artiste he's chosen is someone under me. He's been with me for 3 years and our contract hasn't ended yet. I'm afraid it's against the rules to change hands halfway." Chu Hongguang thought for a brief moment. That Luo Chen guy. He's just an unpopular little artiste, Just hand him over. How is this against the rules? Zhou Wenbin replied without a change in his expression, it's such a huge waste of the company's resources to spend it on a worthless artiste like him. I simply can't agree with Yi Bai's judgment. Hearing Zhou Wenbin's words, Luo Chen's pale and thin lips pressed together, yet that man, Yi Bai, still had that same relaxed look on his face. He looked at Zhou Wenbin coldly with a slight mockery in his eyes. He chose Luo Chen and I agreed to it as well. Chu Hongguang didn't look like he had any intention of changing his mind, and it was obvious that he didn't care about wasting a few resources. A hint of darkness flashed in Zhou Wenbin's eyes like his heart had been shot by an arrow. He kept trying to persuade his boss, Chairman Chu, Yi Bai's breaking the company's regulations outright and causing other artistes with more potential to be bitterly disappointed. As the director, I really can't allow this to happen. Zhou Wenbin put on a facade that he was very understanding and was trying his best to resolve this matter. Chairman Chu, why don't we do it this way? I'll give him Lin Hao. Lin Hao was outstanding in his supporting role in the last movie he did and has gained a lot of popularity. Writing on this, it's not a problem for him to get to a B-list status. Zhou Wenbin sounded like he had the company's best interests at heart and seemed very generous. Nobody would suspect him of having the filthy intentions he really had. This Yi Bai has to try harder if he wants to take me on. Yi Bai, Wenbin wants to give Lin Hao to you. What do you think? Chu Hongguang looked at Yi Bai. A switch? Sure. Surprisingly, Yi Wanwan's attitude was very easygoing. Zhou Wenbin narrowed his eyes, he actually agreed to it so easily. He thought this Yi Bai would definitely complain about him to Chairman Chu, telling the boss how he forced himself onto Luo Chen just now. After listening to Yi Bai's words, Luo Chen's face turned blank. It was like his heart had come crashing down from a tall building. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.